Hey everybody, Coy here with the Watchful Generation, and I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. I wasn't originally going to uh, talk about this one yet. I was going to wait a little while, but I kind of just really felt prompted the other day to talk about this subject because I think it's of extreme importance, and this is literally prophecy fulfilled. So we're going to be in Daniel chapter 12 and Zechariah chapter 12. And so I love what it says in this chapter header here, where it says, "The wise will know the times and meanings of his visions." So Daniel was a latter-day prophet. He's seen our time, and if you really sit down and study all his prophecies, you'll come to that knowledge. And if you take the time to study his prophecies and things, you'll become wise in them, and you'll you'll see that his prophecies are being fulfilled now, and you'll be given the meanings of his visions, especially if you take some of his prophecies and you apply them to the Apocrypha in 2nd Esdras. And it's an eye-opening and spiritual changing thing to do, and there's a lot to Daniel that I'm still studying a lot in Daniel, and I still don't know really the meaning of everything, but I would definitely recommend just sitting down and thoroughly and diligently studying his words and his prophecies and visions and things. So we're going to talk about verse 11, which says, "And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days." So this is talking about the setup that basically it's the setup of the last war, where all nations will be against Israel. And I do know that some other Christian faiths believe that this verse is strictly just applying to the first abomination that maketh desolate, which happened in about 70 AD when the Romans completely destroyed Jerusalem, and that was when the temple was destroyed. But let's remember that there were no Christians killed in that attack, because one, it was prophesied of by Christ, and those who had the eyes to see and the ears to hear and took those prophecies literal, they left, and they survived the attack. So like I said, guys, this is huge, and this is something that we should not be blind to. Daniel 12:11 has been literally fulfilled, and we've seen this fulfilled on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas attacked Israel. And so this is a very important sign of the coming of Christ, and I cannot stress that enough. And it should be taken literally and seriously. So on March 25th, 2020, the church announced they were going to close the temples at the end of the day due to COVID-19. And I have the exact quote from the first presidency right here, and it says, "After careful and prayerful consideration, and with a desire to be responsible global citizens, we have decided to suspend all temple activity churchwide at the end of the day on March 25th, 2020, wrote the church leaders in a letter with the same date. This is a temporary adjustment, and we look forward to the day when the temples will reopen." Okay, so temple work continued to happen throughout the day on March 25th, which was a Wednesday, I believe. And so this made March 26, 2020, the first day officially that the temples were closed. And so in this verse, the temples resemble or symbolize the daily sacrifice. That's what is being spoken of in this verse. And then the temples, well, if I remember right, they didn't fully return to normal operation till around March of 2022, which is just, it's crazy that it was 2 full years that they weren't up and going as we see them now and as we did before. But this doesn't matter, because the point of the prophecy is that the daily sacrifice was taken away. So just because the temple's opened back up, that doesn't matter. And I've heard different people say, well, this prophecy, that can't be it because the temple's opened back up, and that's just not true. The daily sacrifice was still taken away. And so I'll kind of share my opinions on that a little later. Okay, now Hamas attacked Israel October 7th, 2023. So this symbolizes the abomination that maketh desolate set up. Okay, so from March 26, 2020 to October 7th, 2023 is exactly 1,290 days. And I did the math, but you can get online. There's a website called like timeanddate.com that you can plug in 2 dates and see the number of days between them, and you'll see the numbers. But so basically 2020 had 366 days because it was a leap year. 21 had 365, 22 had 365, and 23 has 365 days. So you calculate the number of days from March 26 to the end of 2020, which is 280 days, which remained in 2020. Then you calculate the number of days from the start of 2021 to October 7th, 2023, since there was 365 days in 2021 and 365 days in 22 and 280 days in 2023 from October 7th, or my bad, from January 1st to October 7th, 2023, that's 280 days. Then you add those numbers together, so you're adding 280 plus 365 plus 365 plus 280, and that gives you 1,290 days. So, like I said, the abomination that maketh desolate has definitely been set up. And if you're following the war in Israel, you will for sure start to see all those pieces coming together. And I recommend that everybody somewhat at least follows that war, because it's an important sign of the times. Kind of lost my train of thought there. So as of May, let's see, as of May 2024, this will load. So these are countries that recognize the state of Palestine. So as you can see there's many that do recognize it, and there's just a few, like Mexico, United States, Canada, Australia. It looks like some European countries that don't actually recognize Palestine. And I do know as of May 2024, 144 countries out of 193 United Nations member states recognize Palestine as a state. So, as I said, we'll get into Zechariah 12, but he talks about many nations that will be against Israel during this time. Also, I forgot to mention that one of the Hamas leaders or something, I didn't take the time to find it in here, but you can find, if you just look it up, you can find the quote that they actually said that a big reason why they attacked Israel was because of the red heifers that they had received from Texas for the sacrifice of the red heifer. And they said something like they don't appreciate basically Israel sacrificing something to like a myth, or I can't remember the exact verbiage of it, but you'd have to look it up. So it's kind of crazy that they would, well, they're literally attacking Israel over a biblical thing. And so, and kind of the red heifer prophecy isn't like yeah, it's a sign of the times, and it should be looked at as a sign of the times, but it doesn't really have any significant value to us as Latter-day Saints. Because, or even when you read in Micah chapter 4, it talks about the temple that'll be built in the last days, and it talks about it in some other places, and I still think a lot of people misinterpret that scripture saying that, before the Lord can come, the temple in Jerusalem has to be built, because during the millennial reign, he will reign from both Jerusalem and New Jerusalem. But the third temple that's really being spoke of about in scripture was the Salt Lake City temple, and I might talk about this stuff a little more in depth in a different episode, but that was the third temple that the scriptures were talking about that needed to be built. And so personally, I don't think the temple in Jerusalem has to be built before the second coming. I think it can be built in the millennium, because this war, though, is going to get so bad that only Christ can save Israel from total destruction. So anyway, sorry, getting a little off track there, but let's let us go to Zechariah chapter 12 real quick. Let's see. Okay. So, yeah, the chapter header for this chapter says, "In the final great war, all nations will be engaged at Jerusalem, but the Lord will defend his people. Then the Jews will look upon the Lord whom they crucified, and there will be great mourning." So we're really only going to talk about the first 6 verses that talk about the nations being against Jerusalem. The rest of the chapter, of course, is awesome, because that's when Christ will come to the Jews and save them from destruction, and they'll finally recognize like Jesus Christ is the Messiah. And I mean, it's beautiful how much mercy he will show to the Jews. So starting in verse 2, it says, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem." So if you think about it, Israel has been a powerful country in the Middle East since they got, I guess, their territory back, which happened May 14th of 1948. So there's been many nations, like they've had different types of wars and things, but not too many other nations have really like dared to mess around with Israel, because they've become a powerful country in the Middle East. And I mean, they have powerful allies, including the United States of America. And as time goes on, we'll see how all this works out, because there's a lot of citizens of America and a lot of people in Congress that do not stand with Israel. And there's a lot of people that are calling for the destruction of Israel. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, recently we've seen many different countries throughout Europe and just the world, South America, stand against them since the attack of Hamas. And even the ICC has extended an arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu, and other European countries also say that they will honor that arrest warrant to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, granted, I can't remember his name exactly, but the leader of Hamas, they also extended a arrest warrant against him. So we'll see what happens with that. But there are many countries that are going to honor that arrest warrant. And I guess if there's even some countries, if I remember seeing it right, that said that they won't allow like the Jews in their country and different things like that. So verse 3, "And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it." So Israel's really become a rock, like a stone, immovable stone in the Middle East over time. And it's kind of become a stumbling stone too for many Arab countries that they hate Israel, but they just can't seem to overcome Israel. So, and really any terrorist organizations or anything like that that's kind of dared take on Israel's absolutely been crushed by the IDF throughout the history time, and even now we see that they are I mean they're destroying Hamas right now, and since the attack they really have taken the war to them. So that will continue to be the case as this goes on, and as other nations begin to stand against Israel. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but by the power of the Lord, which we'll read here in a second, they will be able to withstand these attacks. So verse 4, in that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness. And I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. So Jesus Christ himself will defend Israel during this time. And he's basically, what this is saying, he's going to destroy the enemies of Israel. With whoever is going to attack Israel, they're going to be defended by Christ, and Christ is going to destroy them, is what this verse is telling us. And so we see that really come into light. And I'll talk about like the Iranian attack in I believe verse 5 a little bit. And so going into verse 5, it tells us, and the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength, and the Lord of hosts their God. So through the strength of God, and the citizens of Israel will look to God to get their strength to defend themselves from these attacks, and continue to have strength to fight off their enemies, and be able to overcome their enemies. They'll look to God for that. And so that's what we're seeing here. And so if you remember, on April 13th, Iran fired 170 drones, more than 30 cruise missiles, and more than 120 ballistic missiles at Israel. But Israel was able to intercept 99% of those missiles. And guys, that's amazing. And coming from my own military background, that's just something that's kind of unheard of. It doesn't happen. And so that in of itself is a miracle. And I remember when the attack first happened, and I was kind of just listening to different things. There was a scientist from Israel or something that said that them being able to intercept 99% of the missiles from that attack is the same as the parting of the Red Sea. That's how miraculous that event was. And so just within that, you can see that God's hand is with Israel right now, and that he's defending his people, because at the moment they might not be the covenant people, but they are still a chosen people. And so God's going to protect them, and he's going to continue to protect them. And if you sit down and you watch these wars and different things unfold with Israel, you'll see God's hand in them. It's pretty cool. And so verse 6, in that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. So this part right here, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem, that's been fulfilled on May 14th, 1948, when they gained Jerusalem again. And so, but because of that, and since then, the leaders of Israel and even the people of Israel, they truly have been like a fire through like many different altercations with Arab nations, and they've been able to defend their land and withstand many different attacks. And I mean, watching, if whether you like Benjamin Netanyahu or not, like if you watch him and he talks about these like different things, you can see a fire in him, and he's doing the things necessary to protect Israel. And I mean, he's doing a pretty good job. Like he's taken the battle to Hamas. And so I want to show you guys this. This is kind of a page on X that I follow that really covers the war. And so if we can just Israel, find just different things here. So you see Israel's north is burning after days of rocket attacks. Oh yeah, that's like a new development with Hezbollah. They've recently have began attacking Israel at the moment. And I don't know what's really going to come of this, but there were Israeli airstrikes in Syria. And this one, I kind of really see crazy. It says the Maldives, if that's how you say it, has decided to ban Israelis from entering the country. And so no Israelis are allowed to come here. That's kind of big, guys, because they're literally, like, in a sense, excommunicating them because of who they are. And if you read some of these comments on here, it's pretty. They get pretty bad. I've never been on here on my computer, but if you get on and read those comments, like people say pretty crazy things, like call Israelis like the Zionist scum, and that they shouldn't be allowed anywhere. So here Chile says it will join South Africa's case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. So there was another important post I wanted to show you. Oh yeah, Brazil recognizes Israel as well, and they've recalled their ambassador from Israel. Let's see, where's it at though? And we're still waiting to kind of see what happens here. So back in late May, there was, I don't know if necessarily it was like they got confused, but Egyptian and Israeli soldiers started firing upon each other at the border of Rafah, and it resulted in 2 Egyptian deaths. And so I don't know, I need to look more into that one. I kind of forgot about that, to see if there's going to be more about that, or if if there's some other things following that, because that's kind of a big deal. It's kind of like if we were, because we protect the DMZ as well. Let's say we were on the border of North and South Korea and we started firing with North Korean soldiers that resulted in 2 of their soldiers being killed. That would be a big deal. That could cause a full-on war. So where's that one I wanted to show you guys? Oh yeah, so this is the ICC, the International Court of Justice, I believe. Might not be, but I believe that's who put out the arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu. So here you see today Ireland, Norway, and Spain are announcing that they recognize the state of Palestine. And also one other thing that happened in the Italian parliament, it might be somewhere on here, but they were all in the parliament waving Palestinian flags. And so it's not on here, but Italy too stands against Israel. So, and then just to show you guys this one, Norway will comply with the ICC's arrest warrant against Netanyahu and Gallant. So Gallant, I believe Gallant is the leader of Hamas. So yeah, it's getting pretty heated and crazy, but we'll see what happens as it continues, and I think it will probably get worse, because I do know, and I couldn't find it. It was on this page originally, but it's been removed. But I do remember seeing a post that said Turkey was ready to attack Israel. They just needed some more support from other Arab nations around Israel. And so we'll see what happens with that. I do know that Turkey has cut off ties with Israel completely, and so we'll see what comes of that. But I mean, guys, this is fulfillment of prophecy. Like, I totally believe that the last and great war has been set up. I mean, you can't. It's not a coincidence that from the day the temples were closed to October 7th, 2023, being 1,290 days. It's not a coincidence. That's the daily sacrifice is the temples closing, and the abomination that makes it desolate is Hamas attacking Israel. And so I've heard some different things concerning this prophecy. A lot of people, like I think I mentioned earlier, say that the prophecy isn't fulfilled because it was 1,291 days since the temples closed. But like I said, March 25th, they just announced they were closing the temples. The temples didn't close on March 25th. You could do temple work throughout the day on March 25th. So the temples officially closed the 26th of March of 2020. And so that kind of just, to me, that just dismantles that argument. But I've also been told, like, the prophecy isn't fulfilled because the temples have opened again. And I think that's kind of like a pretty weak argument as well, because I mean, of course the temples are going to open again. The Lord isn't going to allow the temples to remain closed, because we need those. Those are saving ordinances performed in the temple. And in the temple, that is where we are endowed with power. And we need that power from on high to endure both the things that have been happening and the things that are going to continue to happen as we continue throughout these last days. And so I think people look at the time that the daily sacrifice was taken away as like permanently, like it's gone for good. And that's not true. I mean, either way, the daily sacrifice was taken away. There was a time that you could not attend the temple. And we all remember that. And so it's fulfilled. It was taken away. And so, like I was saying, temples are a necessary tool. And so the Lord's is gonna open them back up. He's gonna make sure that we can receive that power to be able to continue. And so, out of a lot of different things that I have studied, I've seen a lot of people take this one light and believe that it hasn't been fulfilled. And guys, I'm telling you, it's been fulfilled. The Great War, I totally believe to my core, has been set up. And this is such a crucial thing for us to understand. Like, that was a crucial sign of the times. That is a true sign of the coming of Jesus Christ. And so we need to develop the eyes to see that and the ears to hear. And we need to accept that the abomination that maketh desolate has been set up. And so now we will see how things continue to play out. But I spent a lot of time studying this one and a lot of time in prayer, because I remember that I was afraid, in a sense, when I was studying this prophecy and other things, that I didn't want to be deceived or led astray. And so I spent a lot of time in prayer to our Father in heaven, just saying, look, I don't want to be led astray and deceived into believing these things that have been fulfilled where maybe they haven't. And literally like a day or two after I prayed about it, I went and with my brother-in-law, I went to one of his neighbors' houses, and he talked about the same exact thing that I'm telling you guys about, and different things that I also spent time studying. He talked about the same things, and right there, like, and you guys need to get your own witness of it and pray about these things as well and study them. But I heard the voice of the Lord in my head tell me, like, I'm not leading you astray. This is what's happening. And so continue to basically prepare and be watchful. So I can't stress it enough, guys. Like, this has been fulfilled, and this is a big prophecy that has been fulfilled. And it's kind of amazing that we are the generation to see it. We bear witness of this being set up. And so it's sad with what's going on with the war, but it's also, we can rejoice because the signs of the times are pouring out upon this earth, and we can rejoice in recognizing, like, the Lord's coming soon. And if we continue to be watchful, verse will be protected as the early Christians were in 70 AD at the first time of desolation. And the Lord will prepare us. And so, guys, take the time to study Daniel chapter 12, specifically that verse. And I would recommend taking the time to study Zechariah chapter 12. Also in Micah 4, it's Micah chapter 4 verses 11. 11 through 13 also talks about a little bit about the abomination that maketh desolate. So, verse 11, now also many nations are gathered against thee, that say, let her be defiled, and let our eye look upon Zion. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there are many nations gathering against Israel. And I don't know, we don't know exactly, in a sense, how that might look, but it's definitely happening, and we do know people are saying things close to let her be defiled. There's people in the United States of America calling for the total destruction of Israel. So, take the time to study that. Zechariah 12, just take the time to sit down and really study those things and pray about them and have the Lord himself bear witness to these things, because I'm telling you, it's been fulfilled, and we need to quit making these weak kind of little excuses of why it hasn't, and face the truth. Prophecies being fulfilled. This has been fulfilled, and it's opened up a different door, and it's a crucial sign of the times. If we can't recognize that, like the Lord is going to come as a thief in the night. And so, with that, I want to leave you with another quote from the prophet Russell M. Nelson. This was given in his talk, Spiritual Momentum. It says, we have never needed positive spiritual momentum more than we do now, to counteract the speed with which evil and the darker signs of the times are intensifying. Positive spiritual momentum will keep us moving forward amid the fear and uncertainty created by pandemics, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and armed hostility. Spiritual momentum can help us withstand the relentless, wicked attacks of the adversary and thwart his effort to erode our personal spiritual foundation. So, to me, it sounds like in that quote, Russell M. Nelson is one telling us to be watchful and to know these things, to take the time to study that spiritual momentum, studying and praying. And in that verse, it really spoke to me, that where he says the darker signs of the times are intensifying. So that was this. Well, we can look real quick. Spiritual. I believe this talk was, given in April of 2022. Take the time to study it and pray about it, but I think things like the Daniel 12:11 being fulfilled, that's something that he was talking about when he said the darker signs of the times are intensifying. That right there tells us that things are going to get worse. And so, like I said, it's important for us to take the time to study these things and pray about them and receive your own witness, because scary things are going to happen, but we don't need to fear if we remain watchful. The Lord's going to protect his people. I promise you that he's going to ensure that you're okay. If you look throughout the history of the Book of Mormon and the Bible, you'll see that the Lord always delivers his people before destruction. Even when Joseph Smith was alive, like their missionary efforts, in Europe were going to Europe, preaching the gospel, those who would convert, ushering them over here to the United States of America because they seen what was to come in Europe, and that was the wars. And so the Lord's he's gonna protect us if we stay in tune and follow him. And so take the time to study the prophet's words, study these chapters, and just kind of give some attention to the war in Israel. I promise you it'll benefit you in watching for the signs of the times. And that's what I got for you guys today. And thank you, and comment. My email will be in the description if you have any questions or comments, or if you have anything to share on this topic that maybe I've missed. I'd love to see them. And so thanks, guys. I hope you have a beautiful day, and stay watchful. I'll talk to you later.